Good evening and welcome to Agenda, where we come to you with the families of two of the most tragic cases that took place 8 years ago. 7 years for one of them. It was the case of Soumya Vishwanathan and Jigisha Ghosh, two young women, two young working women who were out and about on their way back from work. Both of them were murdered. For a long time, the police didn't have any answers at all. They didn't know who was behind it, what could be the motive. But finally, after all these years, the police has been able to manage a conviction. Today, a Delhi trial court has said that 3 men are guilty of the murder of Jigisha Ghosh and Soumya Vishwanathan. Soumya's mother is with us. Jigisha's mother spoke to us earlier. Jigisha's lawyer, family's lawyer, is with us, and we're going to talk to them about the intricacies of the case, what it takes really to get justice, the fight that it entails, and some of the lesser known facts about this case. We'll speak to them in just a bit, but Jigisha's mother told us that she still faces threats because of what that case actually meant. Here's what she said.
Standing here with Jigisha's mother, it has been it has been a happy moment for them. 7 years later, justice they've got. Ma'am, what do you have to say about this?
जो आपने वहाँ बोला बोलिए।
मैं यही चाहती हूँ कि उनको डेथ पेनल्टी होना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये कोल्ड ब्लडेड मर्डर है। बेटी को पासवर्ड पूछा, उसने बोल दिया। बेटी को सब उसका जो बिलोंगिंग्स थी सब मांगा, उसने दे दिया। फिर भी कूल ब्रेन में मारा। हाँ, जब उसके साथ कोई आर्गुमेंट हुआ या उसने रजिस्ट किया, दिया नहीं, ऐसा तो नहीं है। और फिर मारने के बाद इतना बेरहमी से बॉडी को ऐसा झाड़ी में फेंका है, वो उनके लिए है। मेरी एकलौती बेटी थी, ऐसा झाड़ी में जब टीवी में देख रहे तो मैं रह नहीं पाया। मैं कितना मैंने दुलार से उसको पाला हूँ, उस बेटी को मेरा कैसा झाड़ी में फेंक दिया, वो सीन मैं भूल नहीं पाती।
Mrs. Ghosh speaking to us a short while earlier. She didn't want to come on this show because, as she told NDTV, that she still receives threats in this case. But we have H.R. Khan, the family's lawyer. Remember, there is a public prosecutor who's appointed by the state. But Jigisha's family also had their own counsel to put across the victim's point of view. And of course, Mrs. Vishwanathan is here. Jigisha, a call center employee. Soumya Vishwanathan, a television journalist like all of us over here. Mr. Vishwanathan, I wanted to ask you, you were there with Mrs. Ghosh today. Did you all, when the police said that the people behind your daughter's murders, they're the same people, did it make you reach out to each other?
Actually, the judge did not say it is the same people. Today, the verdict was only of Jigisha, actually. Soumya's case has not come to that stage as yet.
Right. But the police has told us that.
The police has told us now it's the same people.
And just to tell our viewers, it's very, very tragic because Soumya was killed in 2008, and just a few months later, in March 2009, is when Jigisha's thing took place. Do you sometimes wonder, and the family, perhaps Jigisha's family, must be thinking that if the police acted faster, another young woman wouldn't have been killed?
I think the police tried their best, but they couldn't get them. They couldn't get hold of them. It is somehow only in March. See, September, Soumya was killed. January, they had committed another murder. Nadeem, who was a driver of a car, Travera, they had killed him and taken away the car. March, Jigisha's case came up just because, they had utilized their, debit card, credit card. That's how they were caught hold of.
Now, we have Mr. Khan over here, who's the family's lawyer. So first of all, I think what the viewers don't know is that the court was very, very worried about the fact that Jigisha's parents, are of modest means, and they want the police to find out whether they can afford, if they need financial help or not. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was an issue. There is a judgment of the Supreme Court, latest judgment of the Supreme Court, which says that before sentencing the accused person, there should be an inquiry about the status and the livelihood of the accused person, so that an appropriate compensation should be given to the deceased family, because deceased family has suffered a lot. She was the only, Jigisha was the only breadwinner of the family, and they
Her
were
parents are
dependent.
retired.
Her parents are retired, and they were dependent on the earning of the Jigisha. So for that purposes, court has given just 4-week time to the SHO of the area and direction to the DDA administration to appoint some probation probation officer who can find out all these facts. And the SHO has been directed that
So despite all of their troubles, despite the fact that they're 70 plus, am I right? 70
That's
plus,
right.
the Ghosh family, they had to come all the time to the courtroom.
every time. They were so particular, every time they used to come to the court and to hear the hearing. And every day they were crying inside the court.
They were crying inside the
They
court.
were crying every time.
It's very,
It is
very,
very
sad.
very sad for the family, and very sad for they both are very sick. They are suffering from various diseases and highly diabetic. Yet they were coming to the court and pursuing the matter.
It's terrible. Ma'am, I wanted to ask you, when you would go to courtroom, Mrs. Ghosh, of course, went to the courtroom, as Mr. Khan is telling us. Would you also keep going for every hearing on this
As far
case?
as possible. If I am in Delhi, we used to go. If
And
we are not out.
did you form a bond with Mrs. Ghosh?
Yes, the day it happened, the day we came to know about this murder, and that they were caught, we went to a house actually.
You went to her house.
We went to a house actually. My daughter, elder one, she flew down from, at that time she was in Vietnam, she flew down from there, and then we went to a house.
What could you talk about? Would you keep going to her house?
It's just a empathy with each other, nothing else, It happens that way.
Yes. And were they, when you hear of what the family's gone through, did she ever tell you that they were being threatened? Were you threatened?
No, not.
You weren't threatened.
No.
What kind of threats is Mrs. Ghosh facing, ma'am?
She's getting blank calls, telling them to withdraw the case and other things,
We have filed an application for that.
Yeah.
Threatening messages. She was both her husband and wife. They were receiving threatening messages because the trial was going to be concluded. So they were threatening that they should run away from here.
Have you
They should
figured
not
out
pursue
of
the
the three
matter.
accused who is behind these threats?
Application has been given to the court, and the court has directed and conveyed the message to the defense counsel. They should not be done again. So that was done. Now the very important aspect of the matter is the case is decided decided to the extent of how much sentence they should be given,
Yeah.
because this could be a case for death punishment, and
Right.
for that we will have to show the court that from all the circumstances
Yeah.
this case leads to one of the rarest cases
Yeah.
where the death punishment should be given.
Yeah.
Because when she was lifted from her house, outside the house, she was taken to one ATM.
This is very, very significant because till now what we've known is that a lot of the accused a lot of the witnesses weren't coming. But what the families tell us is that there is one witness, and that witness is the guard at the ATM. And what the case details is a fascinating behind the scenes details that you figure out. The guard was a subsidiary player. He was there the night that Jigisha was abducted by these three people. They were people, she had just been dropped by her office cab, and she'd gotten off and she was on the telephone. And when she was on the telephone at that particular time, she was distracted. It was happened right outside her home, right? Right outside her home. And round about that time, these three men came in the car They dragged her in and took her to an ATM right in the area. And it is the guard of the ATM who made sure that he saw.
He was not the guard of the ATM.
Yeah.
He was opposite building guard.
But he kept an eye out.
But he was having an eye
So
on
he
the ATM.
kept an eye out.
And he is the person who, he is the witness, eyewitness, he is the witness of last scene. No.
Just fascinating details of how this guard became the last person who was to see the entire thing. And he, despite a lot of threats, even he, so we've heard that Jigisha's family got a lot of threats, and so did this guard. However, he remained true, he remained honest, and he stayed on the case.